I never really gave it much thought until now. I've had the privilege of knowing Susan for so many years. She's Tyler's mom, and throughout his childhood, she was a constant presence, always there, unwavering and steadfast. Just like every other mother, filled with love and dedication. Of course, she was gentle, always inquiring about my studies, about my family, but I never saw her in that light. She was simply the heart and soul of Tyler's world. Just that, and nothing beyond. The journey began when Tyler's world was shaken by his parents' divorce. I can still hear his voice as he shared the painful story of his dad's departure and the heavy burden his mom was carrying. It was undeniably challenging for anyone to endure such an experience, yet I found myself utterly unprepared for the events that unfolded afterward. On that fateful Friday evening, I received a message that would change everything. At 26, I had just wrapped up my shift at the cafe, the little haven where I earned just enough to keep the lights on while I searched for my true path in life. The phone vibrated softly on the table, and my heart raced as I caught a glimpse of her name lighting up the screen. Beloved Susan. At the age of 47, she stood at a poignant crossroads in her life. Hi there, Alex. How have you been feeling lately? Honestly, I can't pretend otherwise. I felt a wave of surprise wash over me. Susan had never reached out to me through text before. Yes, we had shared moments face-to-face before, but this felt entirely unique. I opened the message, my heart racing, and hurriedly typed a response, striving to keep my tone light and carefree. Hey, I'm feeling great. What about you? How is everything unfolding for you? I didn't feel uneasy when I spoke to her. I suppose I never saw it coming. After all these years, it's surprising to see her finally reaching out to me like this. She replied in an instant. I'm managing, thank you. I'm simply trying to find my footing again after everything that has unfolded. It's been really hard, you know? I feel so lost. I really don't know who else I can turn to. My eyes widened as I stared at the message, disbelief washing over me. She was beginning to reveal her true self. For me. I paused to reflect on it for a moment. I was terrified of saying something that might hurt or disappoint you. She was so much more than just a stranger. She held the cherished title of my best friend's mom. Even though Brad and I shared a deep bond, the thought of stepping into something personal with his mom stirred a whirlwind of emotions within me. It felt, quite simply, complicated. I completely understand that feeling. I responded, making an effort to maintain a cheerful tone. It must be incredibly difficult. But hey, you are truly a resilient soul, aren't you? You will find a way to overcome this. I believed that would be the final chapter. Yet, in a moment that took my breath away, she sent another message. Do you understand? Your unwavering support for Brad has always shone through. You have always held a special place in my heart, like a second son to me. I understand you have a lot on your plate, but I can't help but hope you might find a moment to visit me sometime soon. Only for coffee? I long for some companionship. I gazed at the screen, my heart racing, questioning if I was truly interpreting this correctly. She invited me to come over for coffee? Absolutely, we had our conversations, but this feels entirely different. Yet, I convinced myself it wasn't something to worry about. I found myself with nothing more meaningful to occupy my time. And in addition, it felt as though she truly needed someone to confide in. Absolutely, I'm here for you. I can swing by tomorrow. How does the afternoon sound to you? Her reply came in a heartbeat. Absolutely perfect. Thank you so much, Alex. Your kindness means so much to me. Let me prepare a special drink for us. It felt so peculiar. Susan had always exuded a sense of calm, a perfect facade of control. Here she stood, reaching out to me for a simple coffee, and, perhaps, a touch of support? It was a bit uncomfortable, but I thought I'd just go, enjoy a coffee, have a conversation, and then it would all be over. That's the story I whispered to my heart. Yet, I realize now that I was mistaken. That single message, that heartfelt invitation ignited a journey I never saw coming. The following day, I arrived at her house, and everything felt profoundly changed. The moment she opened the door and smiled at me wrapped me in a warmth that felt like home, inviting and full of promise. She wore a simple yet stunning dress, and in that moment, I truly saw how beautifully she had embraced the passage of time. As we settled in, our conversation flowed effortlessly, and with each word exchanged, I sensed her walls beginning to crumble. She began to share pieces of herself, revealing thoughts and stories that felt intimate and precious. The following day, as I arrived at Susan's house, a wave of uncertainty washed over me, leaving me feeling uneasy about everything that had transpired. She was, after all, Tyler's mom. From the days of my childhood, she had been a constant presence in my life, and now, as I stepped into her home for a simple cup of coffee, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. A strange unease clung to me, yet I fought to set it aside, trying to carry on as if it didn't exist. As she opened the door, her warm smile enveloped me like a comforting embrace, and the delicate light blue dress she wore seemed to radiate a gentle beauty. It suited her beautifully, yet I find myself pushing those thoughts away. Susan had always possessed a certain beauty, but witnessing her in this moment, standing before me with that serene and inviting presence, made her appear transformed. A sense of uncertainty lingered within me, elusive and hard to grasp. "Please, come in, Alex," she said, her voice warm as she stepped aside, inviting me into her space. As I stepped into her home, an unsettling silence enveloped me. For years, this place had been her home, but now, after the divorce, it felt achingly hollow with only her presence lingering within its walls. The atmosphere enveloped us in a gentle embrace, more intimate than ever, as if the very walls had soaked up the weight of all that had transpired. She guided me into the living room, and we settled together on the couch, a moment of quiet intimacy enveloping us. A small coffee table stood between us, cradling a steaming cup, its warmth inviting and filled with unspoken words. As she extended her hand to me, I accepted it, a wave of awkwardness washing over me in that moment. After a moment of stillness, she gently inquired, "So, how have you been?" "Seriously? How have you been holding up lately?" I savored a warm sip of my coffee, letting its rich aroma envelop me before I found the words to respond. "I'm managing, thank you. Work has been the same relentless struggle. I'm still trying to find my way, you know?" Susan nodded, her eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that felt almost electric. It seemed as though her gaze held a deeper meaning, a shift that left me puzzled and yearning for clarity. The conversation flowed effortlessly, yet it felt unlike any other we had ever shared. Typically, our conversations would revolve around bread and our shared friends, but this time, she was genuinely inquiring about my life, about me. "I understand," she whispered. "I've been on this journey of self-discovery, grappling with my thoughts and feelings, trying to find my way, you know?" She took a breath, her voice trembling slightly as she added, "The divorce was incredibly difficult for me. I never imagined it would affect me so deeply." Her voice faded into silence. She wore no signs of sadness or defeat, yet there was an undeniable depth in her eyes that spoke volumes. Openness. And that filled me with an unsettling feeling. I was taken aback by how she opened up about the divorce. What was meant to be a simple coffee date, filled with light conversation, turned into something much deeper as she laid her heart bare before me. "You possess incredible strength." Her smile was delicate, yet it held a depth in her eyes that I had never encountered before. A deep yearning, or perhaps a flicker of hope. "Sometimes, I don't feel that strong," she whispered softly. "I'm on a journey to discover the essence of who I truly am now. Not in the role of a wife. Not in the role of a mother. It's just me, standing here alone." I squirmed in my seat, a wave of discomfort washing over me. I realized this was no longer just a simple coffee catch-up. Yet, deep down, I knew there was no turning back at this point. I wanted to avoid any discomfort, so I simply nodded, striving to be there for them. I nodded, my voice steady as I sought to steer the conversation into calmer waters. "But remember, you don't have to face it all by yourself. There are those who truly care for you." As she gazed at me, her eyes filled with warmth and tenderness. "I understand, Alex. Your kindness means so much to me." In that fleeting moment, the conversation hung in the air, a gentle pause that felt anything but awkward. In truth, it felt as though I had entered a realm far more profound and significant than I ever expected. Susan had transcended the role of merely being Tyler's mom. She was a unique soul, navigating her own battles, carrying her own emotions deep within her heart. In that moment, I finally recognized her as something deeper than merely the woman who had nurtured my closest companion. She was a truly remarkable soul. A person with her own journey, filled with unique intricacies and depth. After our conversation lingered on, I stepped out of her house that afternoon, a whirlwind of emotion swirling within me. Not in a negative sense, but in a way that eludes my ability to articulate. A palpable change lingered in the air, a quiet yet unmistakable transformation that stirred the senses. I never anticipated that this visit would leave such a profound mark on me, but in hindsight, I see it was the start of something far more significant than merely sharing coffee with friends. As I made my way home that day, my mind was consumed by the echoes of our conversation. Her vulnerability, the way she bared her soul to me, created an atmosphere of profound intimacy. It was a bit disconcerting, yet there was an undeniable sense of familiarity that wrapped around me. It felt as though it was simply a necessary step in the journey of healing after all that had transpired. At that moment, I had no idea that the simple act of sipping that coffee was merely the start of an incredible journey, one that would reveal just how profoundly life could transform in just a few short months. The days that followed the coffee visit felt profoundly different. I kept everything that happened to myself, not sharing a word with Tyler. I found myself at a loss for words, and deep down, it felt like I shouldn't be the one to reveal it. Yet, the reality was that Susan occupied my thoughts incessantly. It wasn't that I was obsessed, but that conversation lingered in my thoughts, echoing over and over again. Her unexpected vulnerability took me by surprise, and the profound connection I felt with her was something I never saw coming. I felt deep down that it wasn't anything strange. I tried to convince myself of that, yet deep down, an unsettling feeling lingered, whispering that there was something deeper at play. Perhaps she was simply yearning for connection. Her entire world had been shattered by the divorce. She had transformed from being merely my best friend's mom into something much more significant in my life. She was a woman navigating through a stormy sea, desperately seeking to uncover her true self. And perhaps, just perhaps, she viewed me as a beacon of hope, someone who could guide her through the storm. Just a week later, her message lit up my phone once more. "Hey Alex, I hope you're doing well. Do you have a moment to chat tomorrow? I would love to share another coffee with you if you have some time to spare." It took me completely by surprise. I thought perhaps she would reach out in a few weeks or so. But is it really happening so soon? My heart was torn. I questioned if it was truly a wise choice, yet the thought of appearing distant filled me with unease. And so, with a heavy heart, I found myself agreeing. "Absolutely, I'm available tomorrow afternoon. When would be the perfect time for you?" The following day, I found myself back at Susan's house, nestled in the familiar spot on her couch, cradling a warm cup of coffee as we shared our thoughts and laughter. This time, there was an undeniable warmth that wrapped around it, making it feel so much more inviting. She had moved beyond merely discussing the divorce. It felt as though she had discovered a glimmer of peace since we last spoke. We spent the afternoon lost in conversation, sharing everything from the ups and downs of work to the little moments that brought us joy and laughter. The conversation flowed easily, yet beneath the surface lingered an unspoken depth, a hint of something profoundly personal. Susan was gradually revealing her heart, sharing the story of her life in a way that took me by surprise. She shared with me the struggles of navigating her 40s, expressing the deep uncertainty of finding her place in the world at this stage of her life. For countless years, she had poured her heart and soul into her family, dedicating herself to the roles of wife and mother, leaving her to wonder who she truly was beyond those cherished identities. "I don't know what I'm meant to do with myself anymore," she said, her eyes searching mine, revealing a raw vulnerability that struck me deeply. "It feels as though I've been trapped in a life that wasn't truly mine for what seems like an eternity, and now that chapter has finally closed. I feel lost and uncertain about the path ahead." The heaviness of her words enveloped me, each one dripping with the intensity of her emotion. It had become so much more than just the divorce. It was a journey through her life, a deep exploration of her identity, and the painful process of redefining everything she had painstakingly built. "You don't need to have everything sorted out immediately," I said, my voice filled with warmth and understanding. "Patience is essential. I have faith that you'll find your way through this. You possess incredible strength." Susan offered a soft smile, yet her silence lingered in the air, heavy with unspoken thoughts. For a fleeting moment, she gazed into my eyes, her own filled with a deep longing and curiosity. There was an undeniable weight in the air, a quiet intensity in her gaze that wrapped around me like a thick fog. It was more than just a friendly glance. It felt profoundly different. It washed over me, a wave of emotion, yet I found myself at a loss for how to respond. With a sigh of relief, she finally spoke, her voice softening the air between them. "I'm so grateful I can share this with you, Alex. Having someone to lean on brings a warmth to my heart that is truly comforting." I nodded, a swirl of uncertainty filling my mind, leaving me at a loss for words. We lingered in that moment, cradling our coffee cups, savoring the warmth and the silence that wrapped around us. The silence that enveloped us was not merely awkward, it crackled with an intensity of unexpressed emotions, a weight of words left unsaid. It was clear to me that Susan cherished my presence, and in that moment, I found myself awakening to a similar warmth within my own heart. There was an undeniable essence about her, something that transcended the role of just being Brett's mom, that stirred a deep desire within me to stand by her side, to support her through whatever struggles she faced. A fleeting thought brushed against my consciousness, but I quickly cast it away. She was facing so much, and I was simply trying to be there for her, wasn't I? It was nothing more than that. Just as I was on the verge of walking away, Susan surprised me with an unexpected gesture. "Alex," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion, "I want to thank you for truly listening to me, for simply being here. I truly believe I wouldn't have survived this journey without a kindred spirit to share my thoughts with." I smiled, yet in her eyes, there was an unspoken depth that sent my heart racing for a fleeting moment. As her hand brushed against my arm, even for just an instant, that fleeting touch resonated deeply within me, carrying a weight of significance that lingered long after. I hesitated, feeling a mix of emotions, not wanting to overanalyze the moment, yet the intensity of her gaze haunted me long after I stepped out of her home. Was it just my imagination, or was there something deeper unfolding in this moment? Little by little, I started to understand that the desire to keep discovering was something I never wanted to let go of. Several weeks had slipped by since that fateful afternoon at Susan's house, and in some sense, life had found its way back to a semblance of normalcy. Brett and I had shared a few moments together, and I carried on with my everyday life, as if nothing had changed. Yet, each time I laid eyes on Susan, whether face-to-face or through our messages, a deep feeling within me awakened. Though it wasn't explicit, the bond we shared was profoundly undeniable. She hadn't been in touch as often lately, leaving me uncertain about what it meant. Yet, when she did reach out, our conversations felt deeper, more intimate, as if we were sharing pieces of our souls. It had transformed into something deeper, something that resonated within us. We delved into profound, intimate conversations, and I discovered that I was opening up to her in ways I hadn't with anyone in ages. It felt as though we were unveiling parts of ourselves that were increasingly impossible to overlook. One evening, as Brett ventured out of town for a weekend getaway with friends, I suddenly found myself with an unexpected stretch of free time. As I settled in for a well-deserved evening of relaxation and movie watching, a message from Susan suddenly illuminated my phone, pulling me from my tranquil moment. "Hey Alex, do you have some time to spare tonight? I was hoping we could share a drink together or something special. I really want to share more with you." It had been such a long time. I acted without a moment's doubt. I had been longing for a reason to be closer to her, even if I couldn't bring myself to acknowledge it. A profound change seemed to linger in the air, yet I couldn't quite grasp its essence. All I felt was an overwhelming desire to be with her once more. "Absolutely, I'm available. What do you think about meeting at 7 p.m.? she replied in an instant. Absolutely perfect. I will choose a place that feels just right. I'll send you all the details soon. As I arrived at the bar that Susan had recommended, my heart raced at the sight of her nestled in a cozy corner, waiting at a small table. She wore jeans and a blouse, yet there was an undeniable grace in her demeanor that made her truly unforgettable. As always, she radiated beauty, but it was more than just her looks that captivated me tonight. Her smile lit up the moment she caught sight of me, and the warmth in her eyes wrapped around my heart like a comforting embrace. "Hey, Alex," she said, her voice warm as I drew near. "I'm so happy you could be here." I gently pulled out the chair and settled down across from her, the dim lights of the bar enveloping her face in a warm, tender glow. Though the surroundings lacked romance, the intensity of our gazes transformed the atmosphere, filling it with an undeniable connection. "I truly appreciate the invitation." "Thank you so much," I remarked. "It feels like ages since we last shared this moment together." Susan smiled, yet there was a quietness to it that felt different, more restrained than her usual warmth. She appeared to be adrift in her own thoughts, as if a weighty secret lingered just beneath the surface, begging to be revealed. "Are you all right?" I inquired, sensing the change in her expression. She paused, her heart racing, before finally finding the courage to respond. "I found myself lost in thought lately, reflecting deeply on everything that has unfolded in my life over the past year." I nodded gently, allowing her the room she needed to express herself further. This wasn't the first time she had spoken about her divorce, but this time, there was a palpable shift in her demeanor. She appeared more vulnerable, more ready to unveil the heavy emotions that had been weighing on her heart. "I feel as though I'm trapped in the shadows of my former life," Susan whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. "I poured countless hours into caring for others, nurturing my marriage, and supporting my family. Now, I'm on a journey to discover my true self, free from all that has defined me." Her pain resonated deeply within me. It was unfiltered and genuine. Yet, it was also a force that, for reasons unknown, drew us even closer together. It filled me with a deep desire to stand by her side, to support her in every possible way. "I understand," I replied softly. "You have endured so much, and now it's your turn to embrace the gift of time for yourself. It's okay not to have everything perfectly mapped out." She gazed at me, her eyes brimming with a blend of gratitude and an indescribable emotion, something that stirred deep within me. "I know," she whispered, her eyes holding mine with an intensity that spoke volumes. "It's simply, I'm feeling completely lost and unsure of how to begin. It weighs heavily on my heart, this sense of all that has slipped through my fingers." We lingered in silence for a moment, each of us deeply absorbing the weight of her words. And in that profound silence, a transformation began to unfold. The connection between us seemed to blossom, a beautiful intertwining of emotions that filled me with both exhilaration and fear. Yet, I felt a deep reluctance to hurry through any of it. I found myself lost in uncertainty, unsure of my desires, and I sensed that Susan was grappling with the same confusion. As the waiter approached with our drinks, a wave of relief washed over us, and we eagerly turned our conversation to more cheerful subjects. We chatted about work and exchanged random jokes that brought us laughter, yet the profound connection of what we had just revealed hung in the air, impossible to ignore. I couldn't help but feel that this moment was so much deeper than just a conversation between two friends. The connection ran deeper than words could express, and that profound feeling lingered within me long after we parted ways. As we prepared to part ways, Susan enveloped me in a heartfelt embrace. It was nothing extravagant, just a heartfelt embrace that conveyed so much more than words ever could. As she withdrew, her gaze met mine, filled with a tender warmth that spoke volumes. "Thank you for being here, Alex," she murmured, her voice trembling with emotion. "This meant more to me than you can imagine." I nodded, my heart pounding with an intensity one couldn't fully grasp. "Whenever you need me, Susan. I want you to know that I'm always here for you, no matter what." As I stepped out of the bar that night, a wave of unease washed over me, yet it felt strangely appropriate. There was an undeniable connection between us, a force we simply couldn't overlook. I found myself lost in uncertainty about what it truly meant. Yet, deep within my heart, I was certain of one thing. The boundaries of right and wrong were beginning to fade, leaving me lost and desperate to find a way to regain control. What began as a simple exchange of casual coffees and texts was slowly evolving into something far more intricate and profound. It was a reality that neither of us felt prepared to confront just yet. It had been months since Susan and I began to share more moments together. It was one of those inexplicable moments, a feeling so profound that words failed me, even in my own mind. What began as simple, innocent texting has grown into something profoundly deeper. A genuine connection. The late-night conversations that lingered in the air, the shared laughter that echoed in our hearts, and the serene moments when we simply existed together, enveloped in each other's warmth. Everything felt so beautifully effortless. The guilt began to seep into my heart, especially when thoughts of Brett crossed my mind. I often find myself lost in thought about Susan's son, my best friend's child. What would he feel if he ever discovered the truth? It's a question that lingers in my heart. Yet, deep down, I couldn't escape the undeniable connection that was blossoming between Susan and me. One afternoon, I found myself standing outside Susan's house, my heart racing as I texted her, yearning to know if we could have a moment to talk. A heavy decision loomed over me, one that had consumed my thoughts for weeks, and I was finally on the brink of making it. I felt an urgent need to uncover a path through the chaos, and deep down, I understood that I had to reach out to her before I could gather my thoughts and move ahead. I could no longer maintain the facade that everything was perfectly okay. As Susan opened the door, her gentle, comforting smile enveloped me like a warm embrace. Her expression held a knowing depth, as if she had been anticipating this conversation all along. She gracefully stepped aside, inviting me in, and together we moved to the living room, settling into our familiar seats just like we always did. "Alex," she whispered, her voice soft yet unwavering. "I sensed you had something on your mind." I nodded, desperately attempting to calm the storm of nerves within me. As I stood on the brink of revealing the truth, an overwhelming heaviness settled upon my chest, making it hard to breathe. I was filled with uncertainty about how everything would unfold, but the moment had come to finally express it. "Susan, I've been lost in my thoughts," my voice barely above a whisper, reflecting on us, on everything we've shared, and I can no longer push it aside. I understand this situation is complex, but my feelings for you are undeniable, and I believe you share those feelings too. She gazed at me for what felt like an eternity, her eyes gentle yet probing, as if she were trying to discern whether this was merely a fleeting encounter or something profoundly significant. At last, she let out a deep sigh and gave a reluctant nod. "I share your feelings, Alex," she confessed, "but you're absolutely right, it's so complicated. There's no straightforward path here, and I can't help but think about Brad, how this could shatter him if he ever discovered the truth. Still, I can't ignore the undeniable connection that's blossomed between us." Her words struck me deeply. I realized we were both grappling with the same feelings. Yet, there was an undeniable weight in her voice, a shared understanding that this was more than just a fleeting moment or a simple attraction. It was genuine, and we both knew we couldn't let it slip away. With a heavy heart, I whispered, "I never want to cause anyone pain, especially not Brad. I dread the thought of creating tension between us, yet I can't bear the idea of losing what we share, Susan. I simply can't imagine walking away from this connection with you." Susan's gaze softened, and she gently placed her hand on mine. "I don't want to lose you either, Alex," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "But we need to be wise about this. We can't let it slip out. If we go public, it will create chaos, and it will hurt those we care about. I know neither of us wants that." I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. We couldn't let anyone know, not yet, maybe never, but that didn't mean we couldn't still be together, that didn't mean we couldn't make this work. "I think we can keep this between us," I said, a sense of determination settling in. "We can still be together, but no one else has to know. We can have our own thing, without making it public, without causing a scene." Susan smiled softly, her eyes full of warmth and affection. "I think that's the only way. We can have what we want, without putting anyone else in a difficult position, and so we decided we would keep our relationship a secret. No one else would know, Brad would never find out, neither would anyone else in our circle. We would continue our lives, living the way we always had, but now with something more, a love that was just for us. The weeks went by, and everything felt normal. We still saw each other, shared moments, and spent time together, but we kept it hidden. No one questioned anything. We were still close with Brad, still friends, still just the same as we had been before, only now Susan and I shared something deeper, a quiet hidden bond that no one else could see, and it worked. As time passed, I realized that the most important thing wasn't the approval of others. It wasn't about being open about our relationship, it was about us, Susan and me. We were happy, we had something special, something no one else had to understand. It wasn't always easy hiding something this important, but we had each other, and sometimes that was enough. I never thought I'd find love like this, especially not in the way I did, but I did, and I wouldn't change it for anything. In the end, we stayed together, and we kept our secret. It was a secret we would carry with us, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like everything was just right.